Hello, and welcome to this episode of Superhero Ethics. Today we'll be discussing the last two feature film-length episodes of Stranger Things. I'm your host, Matthew, and I'll be hosting through another host, Paul, who I'm controlling. Speaking of controlling, we're going to have some ads that we have absolutely no control over, unfortunately, and we'll be right back with you. Welcome back. So I was kind of deciding how much to commit to the bit. Like, I kind of wanted to actually host the entire episode as Matthew, but I don't think that would have gone that well.
I appreciate the bailout.
Yeah,
but it was funny.
You're piggybacking?
Yes, exactly. I'll be piggybacking this episode.
Piggyback from the pizza freezer.
The pizza, yeah, pizza. There's pizza. There's a lot to talk about here. Let's introduce ourselves, right? I'm Paul Hoppy, totally not a host most of the time. I'm here with our two lovely guests. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
I'm Ashley Kaufman, and I feel like I don't need an introduction.
Fair.
I'm Mark Arcusha, and if you listen to the first part of this, I'm still that same guy. If you haven't, you should go back and listen to that, and then listen to this. But if you don't, I'm Mark Arcusha, and I play D&D on a podcast, and I do voiceover.
Mark, you've been a couple time guest now, so
yeah,
we did Jaws. It was great.
That was amazing.
Oh yeah, awesome. Yeah, I haven't gone back and listened to Jaws because I never saw Jaws, and like I am hilariously spoiler averse. Where like if you spoil a movie from 30 years ago, which I guess that's closer to 40, like I'll still be mad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you should have watched it 2 days ago. That is a 4th of July must in this house.
Yeah. If somebody was like, "Oh, it's on Netflix," I might have watched it. In general, would you call Jaws a horror movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a big debate, by the way, in the horror community.
Yeah, which I could see that. I mean, any kind of genre is kind of. It's not super specific, right? Like there's always going to be things that toe the lines and push the boundaries. I would say Stranger Things is one of those shows, really, where
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, personally, I've never been a huge horror fan. I know Ashley, you're a huge horror fan, right? Mark, it sounds like you enjoy a decent amount. Right?
I do.
Huge.
But like speaking of spoilers, I had not seen Stranger Things until about a week ago, and then Matthew asked if I would edit the podcast because there were some technical issues. And I was like, yeah, sure. Let me just watch season 1. So I watched season 1.
I was like, it's so fast in the beginning.
And then the next day I watched season 2. And then the next day I watched season 3. And then I was like, now I'll edit this podcast on season 4 and then watch season 4 the day that the rest of season 4 comes out. But I stopped overnight to not watch those last 2 episodes to kind of see how it felt. I guess my first question would be like, how did it feel to you having this as a second half? Like, do you feel like it made any sense delivering it that way? Do you feel like it delivered on what was set up in the first quote unquote half of the season?
I think in a perfect world, it would have come out all at once because, while I loved having like the 2, almost feature length actual feature length, literally feature length episodes to wrap it up. I think it would have been a little more enjoyable to watch. Maybe it made bigger waves. Maybe it, created more suspense and everything this way, but I think it would have been better all at once. And I think episode 8 or Papa would have been better if we hadn't waited a month to watch it,
And then episode 9 maybe was better as just like a standalone finale?
Possibly. Yeah, if the break had been there, I think it would have been better.
I wouldn't be surprised. Netflix keeps doing this. They did it with Ozark, and I know that they were saying with Stranger Things that it wasn't done yet. And I could totally see some things that they went back and added because of how popular it was, like the Kate Bush song at the end. They didn't do that until last week. I was excited, and I remember it just kind of did get the hype up again, like getting to wait for it. Usually when I get it all at once, I watch it all at once, and then it's over. So I was kind of, it was only a month where I feel like Ozark was like 2 months. So I was more excited for this. So we watched the first one, and then I put on the second. It's like 9:00 at night. I was like, 2 hours and 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Well, I can't do it. I just are buckling it up and doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But I also would have watched it if it was 3 more episodes probably in the same night.
Yeah, there's a point at which for me, I'm just like, all right, I'm just up till I'm up. Like, I got to finish this unit of whatever I'm watching.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, I mean, obviously I didn't have a long delay between, the first half and the second half of season 4.
You're very lucky.
It did feel like there was a logical pause, right? Like I kind of sort of was like, okay, I guess, but mostly it when I saw that it was basically 2 feature films, it's like 4 hours of content, right? It's like, I think it's an hour 40 and 220 basically, right? And they've got all the dubs, like it's like 5 minutes of credits at the end because Netflix translates everything into like 30 languages, which is fantastic. I love that.
Yeah.
But like 4 hours, like that's an entire Disney Plus show, that's like a whole 13 episode season of a sitcom. Like that's a lot of story, right? I mean, back, watching Star Wars movies back in the day, you had to wait 3 years between 2 hour movies, right? And here it's like, we're going to give you a double feature in one day. And I always would rather watch just the whole thing straight through, no waiting. I do think like, I don't know, for podcasting, it's not bad.
That is true. Yeah. Get those episodes out.
Exactly. So it does feel to me like it probably is a little bit of a gimmicky kind of thing where they're trying to maximize buzz and everything and not have it all just take place over one weekend. But I don't know. I guess I shouldn't really say that it didn't bother me because I didn't really have the full experience. So.
Yeah, it totally worked on me. And I won't lie, when I saw how long it was, I got excited. I was like, we're going to... And I felt like the pacing was really good. Like, it felt like it didn't feel like it was as long as it was. And I watched all of it in one sitting because it was just stuff after stuff and after stuff. And I don't usually cry at shows. I was a mess. I was a mess during a lot of this.
Same.
They really ripped my hearts out.
Which parts particularly do you feel like hit the most? I mean, there's some obvious ones maybe, but
I'm devastated about Eddie, but I felt like his character, the more I thought about it, because I watched it twice since it's come out, and I feel like his character was kind of doomed from the beginning because even if he got out of there, he wouldn't really have much of anything to go back to because he would probably go to jail. Like, no one's going to believe the Vecna story. So he didn't have anything else to do. And it's always at the one moment when the character probably could and should run away. There was really no reason for him to stay. He didn't have to do that. Like in other points, maybe he had to, but he couldn't have done anything with Chrissy. But at that point, I really didn't think he had to stay. Like, they could have just left. But, what a send-off. Like, he got the most amazing scene I think I've ever seen in Stranger Things. And then you rip my heart out.
Yeah. I was gonna say, that was a heartbreaker and a tearjerker, and metal as F. Playing Master of Puppets
started,
forget it.
I lost my mind.
Yeah.
And he really learned how to play it.
Yeah, and oh wow, that's incredible. And nerd that I am, I was like, wait a minute, Master of Puppets came out in '86, and so I googled it, and it did, yeah. But like I think the finale is taking place like at the end of March, and that LP came out, or I guess cassette, whatever, came out at the beginning of March. So Eddie, in that time, learned how to play that song, which is pretty friggin' impressive.
Of course he would.
Yeah. I learned this song as a high school student. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. I think it's one of the greatest metal songs of all time, or like any kind of song. And this was one of the best uses of music I've ever seen in a movie. I will say learning that song is hard. There's a lot of parts. It's a really long song, and it's a very like athletic endeavor. Like your down picking really has to be on point. Like you will have a cramp in your tricep by the end of the first verse, and then
it
just keeps
seem like
going.
an entry level song.
It's not an entry level song. So I will say, on Eddie's behalf, learning that song and executing it well in under a month, the month that it gets released, is extremely impressive.
Yeah.
I also love that he was playing a BC Rich warlock, which like the guitar he's playing, which
Oh,
is such
that
a
his
metal
battle axe?
Yeah, and he was like, it looks like it was born for this world, you know?
I love
And like
him.
it does. And you know, I actually used to walk by on oh geez, was it 48th Street? It was 48th Street. 47th Street? I think it was 48th Street. Jeez. Where all the guitar stores were. And there was this
Do you
BC
mean New
Rich
York
Warlock.
City?
Yeah, in New York.
There you go.
Sorry, it's like implied when
Yeah.
and this one store had like this BC Rich Warlock with like these like blue lightning bolt flame looking things, and I was like, that was always the guitar I wanted. I ended up getting another guitar that was like just as sharp, but it's like it's so angular, and it just feels like it's the perfect guitar for the perfect song in this movie. And I mean, thrash metal was always like my favorite genre in high school, and Slayer's really the band that has more of the kind of horror movie feel. But Master of Puppets is such a, I mean, if you look at the lyrics, like it's so perfect for the whole Vecna and Mind Flayer
And the
kind
bats.
of, you know.
It was just epic. I'm really impressed with the electricity capabilities in the Upside Down. They seem like
I think they were running an extension cord.
Did they really?
From regular Hawkins.
He really is the smartest child alive.
Yeah. But like something that you said, Ashley, and that I agree with, like, you know, Eddie didn't need to die. He could have gone through that thing. But like, and it kind of goes back to like somebody else was complaining about like how the plan that Team Nancy makes to like go in and kill Vecna. And they're like, oh, that's such a dumb plan. Like they were never going to be able to do it. And it's like, these are friggin', the oldest one's 18 and they're trying to figure out how to save the friggin' world.
Yeah.
Like cut them some slack. Like,
I was also yelling at my TV. I was like, you don't even know if it's going to work, girl. What are you doing?
I know, but it's
Tally
like,
ho, let's do it.
yeah. Like, well, I mean, we're not going to do anything just sitting here. You gotta make a plan and go with it.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And then you just execute on that plan as well as you can, and it works or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Eddie decided to veer from the plan, and I feel
Steve
like
told him not to.
every season they do this where they take one new lovable character, and at least like 2, 3, and 4, and they have them do something, and you're like, yeah, they're not going to make it. Like Bob, I was when they showed like that shot with the gun there on the table, I'm like, well, that's it for him. Not that the gun would have done anything against the demo dogs, right? But but it was just like they were basically telling you, look, we're going to kill this character. We have to kill at least one character a season. It's not going to be any of the main characters. They all got plot armor +5 by surviving the first season. Like, you know, maybe in the 5th season, all bets are off. Who knows? But like, I do feel like they really kind of telegraph sort of how they deal with, like removing characters. And that's something I appreciate in a show. I see a lot of people complaining like, oh, why didn't they just kill Max? Or like, you know, it's not right. Yeah. And that's fine, you know, having a preference. Right. But like the idea that like a show can't be good or entertaining without having certain kind of stakes. I've never found like, I hate spoilers, but like if I know ahead of time that like a certain character's not going to make it, I'm like, all right, at least I know that, you know, like, I will say, like, going into season 5, I guess the question would be, like, what do you think they are going to do with Max? And I know, Ashley, you had some thoughts about how they handle that so far. Maybe you want to start with that.
I mean, I thought that scene was the other. I was in tears. The kid who plays Lucas, like, I feel like we really got to showcase a lot of the kids acting, because a lot of the time you're like, oh God, this kid, they just have to stick with some of them because, you know, they started from the beginning. They didn't really get great at acting. But in this episode, we really got to see it showcased. And, you know, it just, the scene was so intense and you have all these emotions and you really feel them. And then to completely kind of reverse it, now Eleven's powers are even more undefined. Like, what are the stakes now if she can bring people back? Like, it doesn't seem like Max is okay. Like, I think I read the Duffer Brothers said that she is brain dead and blind and her bones are all broken and she's in a coma. So that's not great. But she is alive. But I don't know, I know Ken was really upset about it. And I was like, I didn't want to lose her as a character, so I'm happy about it. But at least I felt all those emotions when it was happening and got to experience being like, oh my God, like very upset. But then I don't know that now with 11 having this new power, what does that mean? Can she just save everybody? Or can it only be somebody who's inside the Vecna thing? I don't know. More questions.
For sure.
Yeah, I thought, so first of all, in terms of like 11's powers, I feel like there are things where they could have defined her powers really well early on and then now be contradicting that. And I would have found that quite annoying. I feel like they never defined them very clearly. And that's always been part of the mystery of the show. Like, how do these abilities manifest? What's the nature of these abilities? Like, what's the limitation of these abilities? Like, Papa was like, you'll be stronger than you ever were before. Sure, she didn't complete the training. She went off to save Han and Leia, or the other people, I'm sorry. But
that helicopter scene, though, oh my God, it was beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, that was
damn.
Yeah. But, like, I'm not bothered by her powers being undefined, because it's like, it makes sense that the character doesn't know what her own powers are, right? And we are kept in the dark about a lot of things. Like, sometimes they give us a look into, like, what's going on, that some of the protagonists don't know what's going on, but like we still don't know the whole, like, Project Nina thing, right? We don't know the whole backstory there.
It's a little woman in the desert. What do you mean?
Right. But yeah, so I thought, they had their science project that they have at the end of every season, right? And I think the fact that she went into Max's mind, and like it makes sense to me because Vecna's in her mind. Like, she and Vecna are basically fighting, right, for kind of control over Max, and she lost, but she maybe didn't lose catastrophically, permanently, and like I don't get the sense she could just like resurrect people whenever, It feels like this was
we'll
definitely
see.
Sure, yeah, we will see. And I do, like, from the beginning in like season 1, I was like, do we know that Barb is like that dead?
Well, is everybody who's in there still dead, or where are their bodies?
Because they did say that when Vecna, or when
Henry,
when Henry kills someone, they're not just dead. Like, he doesn't just kill them; he absorbs everything about them, basically. Which then stands to reason, like, well, then everything about them is in him. And, like, maybe there's a way to extract it, And, like, I don't know. If you have telekinesis, like, at some point, maybe you can just, like, synthesize life out of atoms,
Well, maybe that's what's happening.
If you get that good at it. So, I don't know. I'm very... I do feel like they kind of tried to, like... They wanted to deal the loss at the end of season 4, right? So that going into the last season, you have this kind of low point. But at the same time, like, they did kind of hedge on that. And, like... I don't enjoy character deaths most of the time, so like I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But if she's just like in a coma and brain dead for all of season 5 and then they pull the plug, I'll be like, why did you do this?
That would be kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Like, don't Dexter me. Like,
yeah, no, I think that like Elle's, she didn't really like bring her back to life. It was more like defibrillator powers,
right? Yeah,
she got her heart working again.
She was dead for a minute, right?
Right, which I'm gonna say like isn't that long.
I don't know. I've never been dead.
Like, I know someone who was dead for like 8 minutes or something.
Oh my God.
And then got, defibrillated. Yeah, his heart stopped. He had severe brain damage as a result and never was the same and died 4 or 5 years later. Yes. But that was 8 minutes, So 1 minute, like, permanent damage, sure, right? But, like, people die for a minute and get, defibrillated, and, like, then they live. That's a thing, you know? And so it is. She did literally die, right? And that's why
he was able to do the thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I saw her legs start to break, I was like, "Uh-oh, I don't think that's supposed to happen."
Yeah, they're not supposed to turn that way.
Oh no.
That was hard to watch. In a good way.
Then they turn it up to 10 with her being like, "I don't want to go." I was like, "Oh my God, stop."
Yeah, I'm not ready.
And then. Who else died? Jason died. Couldn't give a shit. Bye.
Oh, yeah. That was like one of the most incidental character deaths I feel like I've ever seen, and I love it. Like,
yeah,
I was just like,
yeah,
oh,
whatever, this guy.
dang, they cut him in half.
Yeah, if you had fallen 3 feet to the right, you'd be fine. But as it is, an interdimensional rift opened through your chest.
Yeah.
I don't think Elle could bring him back.
No,
I felt nothing.
Really, yeah. Not that she would necessarily be so inclined.
Yeah. I had big time Edward Scissorhand feels from that fight between Lucas and Jason, right?
Oh,
Whatever.
yeah.
You know, like the jock fight in the attic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that sort of storyline where I feel like that's kind of why Eddie was doomed, because there were, everybody with their pitchforks was all up after him and everybody else. Like that, I don't know, the sort of like secondary group of humans, because there's already the whole army thing and all the military, right? All chasing after Elle. Like here we have this whole other group of humans to deal with that are these like additional sort of like bonus antagonists. How did you feel like that like played with, like, did you like that being a whole thing that kind of like disrupted the plan?
I don't know. I was kind of like, as I've said before, I love this show. That, however, I think was kind of a missed opportunity. Like they had some great setup with, like his taking over the speech and the taking over the like press conference in the gym and all that. And they had a moment of it like in the guns and ammo store. But I think like Jason had more opportunity to be like if not like, truly sympathetic character, to be more of like a interesting antagonist, in that he was, again, he's a fucking 18-year-old kid. Like what?
Yeah.
He's a self-righteous 18-year-old, which is,
whose girlfriend
horrible.
just died.
But his girlfriend got murdered.
But Ken thought it was like Vecna controlling him somehow. I was like, I don't think so. They didn't say that or insinuate that at all. But he looked like a cracked out on drugs at the end.
Yeah.
Like he's got the eyes and the bags, and he was just too crazy. Like his other friend was gonna break that little Erica's arm. Like it was just a little, even though when she hit him in the face, she was like, crit hit, bam.
That was good.
That was amazing.
That was great.
Yeah, it was a little too far with not enough like really good reason. And he was 18 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I've kind of felt that way about most of the sort of like bullying aspects throughout the show. That I've overall really enjoyed the show a lot. I mean, I watched 4 seasons in under a week. So like, I don't do that if I hate a show. Like, I'll quit a show.
No, he doesn't. You don't understand.
I'll just quit a show. Like, I did watch some of it on 1 1/4 or 1.5 speed, because that's a thing
Blasphemy.
I do. And I occasionally would like skip ahead a little bit in some of the Jason bits. And I was kind of like, all right, I don't need you here. Like, I understand how it, like, they kind of want, I don't know. Like, on the one hand, I think they kind of want to like add more complication. And that, like, I kind of just like want to see what happens next. Like, I'm like, the mystery is kind of like the big thing for me, because it's, as much as it's a horror thing, it's also like a mystery suspense sort of thriller, right?
Yeah.
But like, I do think it makes sense. And it's like, they have a certain sort of like, the only villain isn't Vecna, right? Like, it's not like all the evil comes not from this world. And I do agree with you, Mark, though, that like they could have had Jason be more, I don't know whether it's like nuanced or developed or understandable, as opposed to, I feel like a lot of the bullies have been outside of Steve, right? Who gets a full, rehabilitation. Outside of Steve, I feel like they just often feel pretty generic and are kind of like one of the weaker parts of the show.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have those bullies, because it's kind of like Stand By Me or all those other like 80s, like It, or any of the movies that kind of take place. You need that over dramatic extreme bully, because it helps you connect with these kids. And I don't usually like kids shows like this, but they do so many things that I'm like, this was my childhood.
Yeah.
Like the girl, what was the girl, the awful one at the beginning of this with Elle? Angela, I've known so many of those.
Yeah.
So getting to see her get her face cracked open by that skate was so satisfying to my inner child. And, you know, I don't know. I that's more of like the trope that they're going for. But the Jason thing, like they needed him to disrupt the end.
Right.
So they, and I just feel like they made him just too much of a psychopath.
Yeah.
It could have just written a little better.
Do you feel like if they hadn't showed up, like things just would have gone fine and Lucas would have just put the music on and she would have been fine and they would have just killed Vecna? And
I don't, because I think Elle really kind of messed up and overestimated. I think that Papa was right and she was not ready to take on Vecna, especially like in a mind battle. The second they did the mind battle, I was like, okay, she's going to lose.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a showdown where everybody's in front of each other and everyone's together. And how Fox was talking in the last episode, how everyone was separated. We very much assured him that everybody was going to get back together probably before. And they didn't. So when that didn't happen, I was like, okay, we are going to lose real bad right now. Like we are in Infinity War and we got to get to Endgame.
Yeah. What did you think about everybody being split up and like that they managed to confront, you know, the villain from multiple different locations?
I liked it.
I thought it was cool.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like next season everyone's going to be together for the most part.
Yeah.
So it was cool to kind of have everybody working together intercontinentally. Right. Whatever was going on in Russia.
Yeah, the whole Russia plot line, because I listened to you guys cast, right, before watching it. So I heard the whole, I don't know why we really need to be in Russia. This thing goes on too long. And like in the beginning, I was like, no, I see. But then when like Yuri like turned on them, I'm like, oh, okay. All right, this is going to kind of drag out. And then, but the way they wrapped it up, I found very satisfying where like, first of all, like, when they introduced the Russians in season 3, like, that also feels like they feel like a very 80s generic Russian villain kind of thing, you know, which. Oh,
yeah. I love it.
Right. Which I don't know. I have some concerns about Russians as villains right now in terms of like Russophobia and whatever. And like, yes, like the Russian military is doing horrible things right now. But it's like that doesn't mean that like, you know, Russians generally are all, you know, behind that or whatever, you know. And I do appreciate, though, that they have, you know, they've had a couple of like Russian characters, actually, right? I forget the guard's name this time, but Alexei earlier.
Right. Alexei was the best.
Or the season before, right? That was season 3.
At least they took a science thing with it, because we have always been more fighting the Russians with science and, you know, getting to the moon and all that stuff. So I do like that there was their science is just as good, and they're the ones who are figuring this out, like, and I'm one step ahead of us with it.
Yeah.
Sneaky.
Yeah. Anatov is the
that's the guard.
The guard. Yeah. Jack and Hagar.
Man with no face.
Yeah. You know, Paul, I as a Russian, you know, a Russian American, I guess. I get that, and I totally, I really agree with you. But I think that, you know, and this might be like quibbling, but like, I think they do a pretty good job on the show of making it like this: the Russian military are the bad guys, you know. And as a Russian, that's easy to agree with. But. You know, but they also give us these, you know, these characters like Anatov, like Alexei, you know, these Russian guys who are, you know, good guys, and even Yuri there at the end. Yeah, you know, when Anatov appeals to his, you know, sense of heroism, right, from that conflict with, I can't remember what the name of the battle was, but it was a real thing. I looked it up. Right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point and a fair point. And it's not like they don't show the U.S. military to also
bad
be
guys.
Up to no good. Right?
Yeah.
So
they got theirs.
They did.
Yeah, in this episode.
For sure. So yeah, to me, it's the sort of thing that I think sometimes there's like things that like see in some piece of media, and there's like an alert that kind of goes off like, is this gonna like do some particular thing? And that's like, oh, okay, all right. It didn't,
Yeah.
didn't do the thing that I was really worried about.
It triggers your jingoism sense a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, is this what we're doing? It's like, oh no, at the beginning of season 2, when they had I'm like, oh, they introduced the real villains now. People who voted for Reagan. No. When they had like the campaign poster in the
Mr. Wheeler. Yeah. It's been Reagan all along. That's what we're going to find out in season 5.
Right? Exactly.
It was Nancy.
Yeah.
It was Nancy.
And she does look a little like Vecna.
Right. Oh, dear. So, I guess speaking of the U.S. military, then there's like also other group of antagonists, right, who just showed up and just killed all the scientists.
Killed everybody.
Just like, are they just some, like, are they representing the main part of the U.S. military? Or there's some like black ops squad because they were about to like shoot a girl who was just like standing alone in the desert? Like,
I feel like they came in last season. I can't remember when they came in, but I don't know. I think that they were in cahoots with Paul Reiser in the beginning.
Right.
And then he took the turn to like protect her more. So I don't know what like station. Do you know, Mark? Did they explain that?
I'm not sure exactly, but I do like the kind of, fires within fires, wheels within wheels, like different factions of the U.S. military working against each other. I think it's a cool and like kind of a trope in like sci-fi and, this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I can't remember exactly what the relationship is, but.
Because they were killing their own men, even when they came to get the kids and stuff.
Right. Yeah, because those are, they have MP things on their arms, right? So they're like military police. Like that is a military facility, it seems. Right?
Yeah.
So the U.S. military is invading a U.S. military facility because like different people within it, I guess, have different plans. And I guess they think it seems like they think they're doing like the right thing, right? They're like, well, we think this girl has caused all this, so we're just going to solve the problem. And,
well, they think she's wrong. A Russian weapon that's just blowing people's brains up or something like that. And causing all the problems. I think that's what they did. That's what the guy said in the beginning.
I thought that's like the rumor that they spread, but that the military actually believes that she's Brenner's, like Jason Bourne, basically. She's like his assassination without like existing.
They really haven't told us how much the military knows about everything.
Right.
It's just like about like the upside down. It seems like they know, but what do they know?
Right.
It's weird.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of a science project, right? It's not like people have gone into it and come out and just like been fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, although
I feel like in season 1 they did kind of go in season 1.
They did, right? But like
the military, and then everybody goes into the upside down.
It was like really dark, and didn't people just keep getting eaten or like grabbed by the Demogorgon?
The Demogorgon, right? Yeah.
A lot of people got eaten. Yeah.
Yeah, like it feels like, I don't know. It feels to me like the upside down first got like a lot safer for a little while, and then there's these bats. Like,
yeah, it's Vecna.
Right.
It's been Vecna all along, and that's what we were wondering at the end of the last cast is what is actually happening. So I guess we got our answers. The upside down was always there,
right?
But then he learned how to control it with his mind.
Yeah, and that was a really cool thing. I thought I can't remember if it was in episode 8 or 9, but when they showed Henry 1 Vecna arriving in the upside down for the first time, it was kind of like that like weird like yellowish golden color, and there was a demodog just kind of like trotting around, not being really menacing. And even when it showed the particles that would become the mind flayer, it was just kind of like chilling out, doing particle stuff, and then he turned it into a giant spider. So I guess maybe the upside down was just kind of a pretty chill place there for a little while, at least, until he came in there and started messing it up.
Yeah. Way to go, 11.
Yeah.
Right.
She really did mess. She's the Obi-Wan of this story.
Did you feel like, I obviously pretty much knew from watching the cast or listening to the cast, but like, did you get a sense that, the orderly was going to be number 1? like before that was revealed, or did that feel like a big twist?
I feel like I didn't know, but I recognized him as an actor, and I was like, "You just have such like your features are so striking that I'm supposed to notice you."
Right, yeah,
like the different colored brick in a Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah,
right. Here's the secret door.
I think when we were watching it, I figured out that Henry was Vecna.
Oh, okay.
And then my fiance figured out that one was Henry.
Right.
Like we kind of like within minutes of each other, we were like, oh, this is this. No, that's that. Yeah. Right. So, but yeah, no, I thought they handled that very well in the first part of like, who is this guy? What the hell's going on? And so I was pretty surprised, I think.
I was like, why is he getting punished? I thought he worked there.
Right. I guess this is superhero ethics, so like maybe we should talk about some of the ethics of some of the character decisions. I mean, we could start with Dr. Brenner. Like, right? Like, he clearly seems to fancy himself as like the good guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad Elle didn't say what he wanted her to say.
Right.
Yeah.
He was like, just tell me you understand. And she's like, bye, Papa.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great.
I guess I don't really have much of a question here because I didn't write an outline. But like, I don't know. What do you think of Dr. Brenner?
I'm strongly pro electrocuting children to get what you want.
Yeah, no, that's reasonable. For sure.
Me too.
For scientific purposes.
Am I the only one, though, who thought, like, why doesn't Elle bring that shot color with her? Like, wouldn't that potentially be useful to, like, slap around one's neck or something?
Yeah, that is a good point.
Like, that thing, it was useful on her.
Yeah.
Like,
and he had the clicker in his pocket. I didn't even think about that.
It was just right there. The clicker was right there. The thing was right there. Like, just grab them both.
Yeah.
Get in the pineapple pizza truck and go to your science experiment.
I love that what's his face was always horrified by the dead bodies. I mean, as you should be.
Yeah,
but like everybody's having that beautiful reunion, and what's his name? He's so adorable. Argyle's like, oh my God. And I thought he was reacting to them like hugging and being together. And it's like him looking at all the bodies like, ooh.
Yeah. I think it's important in like sci-fi and fantasy and horror that like every now and then you have somebody who hasn't had exposure to whatever the big thing that's going on, because like early on everybody freaks out, right? But then it gets normalized and the characters are like, yeah. Oh, it's this? Okay, fine. And it all becomes kind of humdrum. And I think when you introduce a new character who can kind of have that first reaction again, it kind of reminds you like, oh yeah, this is all very messed up.
Right.
And it did get dark. It got very dark.
It did. It got very dark very quickly. Like the body count in the last episode, or the second to last, right? Was the Papa episode was the one where she broke out?
Yeah. Even Papa's death, that was pretty brutal.
Yeah.
I was like, you deserve it. I feel nothing.
Yeah.
But that scene with the helicopter, I honestly, watching it again, I'm not really sure how they did that. I would like a little breakdown of how they got the helicopter to kind of move backwards and sideways, because it didn't look like CGI. I mean, it probably was, but if not, that was like a very good pilot in there, because it was really cool and it looked very real.
Seems very dangerous.
Yeah.
Can you just fly like you're being telekinetically controlled and,
left, right, left. Yeah, but that scene made me very happy.
It was a great scene. It was one of those, I think we always need like an Elle like triumphantly using her powers. And in a like when you didn't think she was going to be able to do it and she does it. We always need that moment.
The breakthrough, basically.
Yeah. If only there had been like some lights behind her to explode, that would have really sold it.
Right.
But a
couple more trucks.
Yeah.
Maybe a little sandstorm or something.
Yeah. Like something like the big lights from The Natural could have exploded behind her. That would have sold it for me.
Can we get the season 5 finale in a baseball stadium, please?
Yeah.
Nancy's still my favorite person with a gun. Like I don't know how to say it and not sound terrible, but like she shows you how to use a gun properly. I love when she's sawing off the shotgun and they're like, isn't this illegal? She's like, yeah, but I can't miss. And then she just buckshots him out of that window, and it was fabulous.
Yeah. That was a wonderful moment. One very Halloween-y type moment. And it brought to mind like there's been a long lasting discussion of what's better to have, like a gun or an axe. And I think in that situation, like it's pretty 50-50, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, the tentacles.
Yeah.
They were gross.
Yeah.
But they didn't do really good with the axe either. It kind of ripped it right out of their hand.
Yeah, they got pretty jacked up with those by the tentacles there.
I think the Mazatov cocktails were the best.
Absolutely. Yeah.
She did a great. She could throw, Robin.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's always the question of like, if you dismember whatever, undead villain it is then the dismembered member gonna like crawl around on its own?
Right.
And now there's like two of them. And you're like, no, that didn't help at all.
Did not help.
Yeah. And I think that's something that like is a really interesting thing too, is like we are so used to like knowing the stat block and the weaknesses and strengths of every monster, because we're like, oh, werewolf, silver bullet, vampire, stake through the heart, zombie, just hit the brain. But like what I always try and think of is like these people are living in a world where that's, you don't know, or I mean, maybe you do that, but like you're dealing with a monster that is not like, it's like, okay, so if we do this, Vecna will die. They don't know. They never know.
You don't know.
Right.
I think that's a fun aspect and cool thing to think about.
Yeah. And the Demigorgons are so hard to kill.
Yes.
Like it is not easy. None of them have a good time with that. Did you read that what's his face got to use Conan the Barbarian's sword?
Yes. That was
for that final
that
scene.
Is the actual sword from Conan the Barbarian.
At the sheriff.
Yeah. David Harbour
Hopper
gets to use that sword to kill a Demogorgon, and that was pretty awesome. That was a pretty fantastic moment.
It was very awesome. That whole scene was cool too.
Yeah.
With the fire.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the whole like when he like picks up the sword and is like wading in, it felt like that was sort of like the most like fantasy moment.
Yeah.
It felt like quintessential like D&D. Like I don't know. I think you make a really good point about like not knowing what the weaknesses are, and this to me was always kind of it's a little bit of a challenge in like actual role playing games, is if all the players know the weaknesses of the monsters, like the characters don't necessarily know that.
Right.
But it's like, are they gonna act like that, or is it just like, well, yeah, you know, and you're just gonna do what you do? Here, it's like there was a process of discovery, right, of kind of learning, and then maybe sometimes you learn, oh, this actually doesn't work on this version of this thing. Oopsie,
Right. Yeah.
Like because they basically took Vecna out, right, but they just didn't either, right? Like it looked like they destroyed the physical form pretty much.
I guess so. It was in it was like a mind
burning,
fight.
and then they knocked him out the window.
Right.
And then when they went down there, his body was gone.
Oh, okay,
yeah. He like ran off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But like, so like, they don't really know how to kill him. Like, I imagine it's going to have to be some sort of a psionic battle or whatever with L. Like, that's probably going to be at some point. All right, so in this season, I felt like they did an amazing job at the end of being like, this is a hive mind, so we can have some people fighting against it in Russia. We can have some people kind of distracting him on in the right side up, and then some people going into the upside down and like trying to attack the body, and then we can have L in his mind and like kind of fight the same villain on a whole bunch of fronts.
Yeah,
I feel like that's going to be a challenge in season 5 to kind of match that without feeling like they're just kind of trying to replicate the same thing. And I mean, maybe they can, but I don't know.
I think that season 5 is going to be a lot about Will.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the end, right, it felt like there was like they were like, we're gonna make Will important again. Like, remember,
Yeah,
this guy
it
has a
started with
connection.
him. It's going to end with him, and I honestly think either him or Elle, one of them has to die, because as long as I think Will has a connection with Vecna.
Yeah.
So that's going to be, it's going to be sad.
I think we might.
But
Oh, sorry.
do it. No, go ahead. But
Yeah.
it's time to raise the stakes. Is the last.
Oh, the stakes are up.
I guess maybe let's transition into like, what would you like to see out of season 5? Is there anything that you would definitely not like to see that you think might happen? And or like, just where do you think it might go?
I don't want Steve to die. That's all.
I feel like he's at risk.
He is totally at risk.
He feels like an at-risk youth.
A lot of people, especially because like the him and Nancy triangle with Jonathan, now that Jonathan's back and immediately Jonathan's lying to her. So that's going to come out.
Right. Yeah, that was one of the few things that like really kind of, I'm like, oh, we're back to this lying thing again.
Yeah.
Yeah, right back to it.
Yeah.
Like, you could save the world so many times.
Yeah.
We got to lie about the college application. Yeah. Just tell her you don't want to go.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What I want to see, and other than this, I don't really care. I think it'll be great, but I want to see the like upside down come to the right side up. I would like, that last shot when they're looking at the giant, fiery, crazy, smoky, ash raining X in the ground. And they're like, yep, that's an earthquake. That's what earthquakes look like, guys.
Totally an earthquake.
Right.
So like, when I want to see like a real, like, no one can ignore this anymore. This can't be swept under the rug. This is like a real final big ass battle, where everybody gets involved.
Oh, dude, the government's going to return to the living dead them and just nuke Hawkins.
Yep. Archimedes, hot dog. What's the...
Yeah, I think they've gone 4 seasons with having all this ridiculous stuff go on without it being public knowledge.
Yeah.
It feels to me like it has to become public knowledge. Like,
yeah,
it has to be something that's just, well, that's what's going on,
Especially
your dimension.
Yeah, especially since we're getting like a time jump, so like
Right.
if this picks up and it's like the post-apocalypse, now demo dogs eat everybody all the time, and bats ate my grandma.
Can't leave your dogs out.
Yeah, and we see like a beleaguered, Hopper with the Conan sword on his back walking through a wasteland. I would be really okay with that.
I'd watch that.
On a horse.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
If it's
That
in
is
the upside
crazy.
down, I feel like it should be a nightmare.
Yeah.
I will say I'm getting like tired of the 2 days later thing. I know they do it at the end, and it made me, I wanted to see them find Dustin and see Eddie. What did they just leave Eddie's body? How did they all get back since he cut the thing?
Yeah.
But no, we just get to do that with our mind, which is fine. But I'm really it's old. It's getting old. They keep doing it.
Yeah.
And given that they have like they had like a 30-minute like denouement, like it's like, okay, the climax
4
has happened and now we've got so much more stuff going on. It feels like they don't have to have that big of a jump before, like, okay, everything's back to normal and now we're just talking a little bit. And yeah. Does anybody know how long the time jump is supposed to be for season 5, or they just said there will be one?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think they just said there will be one. To
Make the kids look the appropriate
right.
age.
The fact they have a bunch of 20-year-olds playing 14-year-olds.
Yo, dude, Will was like, "You're the heart, Mike. Yeah. You're the heart." I'm like, oh my God. I really heard what Fox was saying this time, and I couldn't stop it. I watched the whole time. I'm like, oh my goodness, that kid sounds like he's 45.
And he looked like he was wearing his wig from season 1, because it was just
right.
It was even like a smaller little bowl cut on top of his head.
Yeah. I will say that like Jonathan and Will, the actors are like 11 years apart.
Yeah.
But this is what happens is that they cast young-looking adults to play teenagers, and they cast kids to play kids.
Right.
And then the kids get older, and there's no guarantee they're going to be young-looking adults. Right. They're just adults. But then the young-looking adults who are playing teens still look young. They don't look like they went from 16 to 18 or to 20 or whatever. They didn't fill out any. They went from 26 to 28. It's like, they look the same.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That scene when he's like, oh, you got the Lego stuck up your nose. He was like, did I? When? I was like, oh, no.
I feel like they could have fixed that with just like, they made it, like 180 days, like 8 months or 6 months or something like that, time jump between season 3 and 4. Mm-hmm. They could have made it 2 years. They could have made it a year and a half. You know?
Let them be like seniors.
Yeah, there's no reason that it had to be that soon after, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, plot-wise, it's not like someone was pregnant and then they were 8 months pregnant, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's not
it's true.
So I think that would have helped. What I did is I started watching season 4 and I was like, oh, this feels really weird after just watching season 3.
You got to watch all those kids grow up in 4 days.
I know. But then I waited. I waited a day. And then I came back to it. I'm like, okay, now my brain accepts these characters, these older looking actors as these characters.
Right.
And I had to reboot. It's like turning the computer off and turning it back on, and then everything works.
This feels wrong, and I'm gonna go.
Wrong. Exactly.
That's so funny.
Does anybody have any particular extra points that you wanted to bring up?
I wonder if Paul Reiser's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness for that lady who can keep getting everybody out of bad situations, who works for the government. I hope she's safe somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad that Dustin talked to Eddie's uncle. I thought that scene was very, it was sad.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because people were still drawing devil horns and stuff on his missing poster. So that's why it's like he wouldn't, even if he survived, everyone loves a scapegoat.
Right.
Yeah.
But at least his uncle got that closure because he knew that he was he's a sweet boy.
I want to touch back on something I said earlier about people complaining about the kids' plan or whatever, and one moment for me was when Hopper and Joyce and Murray are going back and we'll try and fight the particles. And that way we will help them. And it's like, well, how are you going to fight the particles, really?
Right.
And they get there and the
Ask
particles.
him about the particles.
The particles have inhabited these fightable bodies. It's like, oh,
yeah,
that's convenient.
Perfect.
And I was like, it's kind of, I didn't care because I was invested in the story and I loved it. And it's like, the Spielberg story, back to Jaws, of when I forget who it was, told him you can't blow up the shark. At the end of the movie, you can't blow. First of all, it doesn't work when you shoot a tank like that. It doesn't work. And Spielberg said, if I can get the people there, if I can keep them, in the story, in the palm of my hand, they're not going to give a shit that it blows up at the end. They're going to love it. They're still going to love it. And I think
smile, you son of a bitch.
Exactly. And I think this show does a great job with that. Of any show you watch, there's going to be dumb stuff, and you're like, oh, it doesn't make sense, But if the show's good enough, you
I don't care.
Glide right over that. Your disbelief suspends you right over that, and I think the show is great at that.
I love that Joyce got to save Hopper at the end.
That too, yeah.
Now I want to say Hooper or Hopper with the Jaws talk. I'm all confused.
It happens.
Hooper. But I like that she got. Not that I didn't think that he was going to die, even though he gave the "I'm going to die" speech.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I was like, what are we doing right now? Can we not kill him off?
Yeah.
You're going to have to wait at least till season 5 for that.
I did go through that entire last episode thinking that everybody was going to die at any moment. I think that's why I worked myself up.
And I think that is just as good as having somebody die. That's a really weird thing to say.
Right.
But it's like riding a roller coaster.
Yeah.
When you're riding a roller coaster, you're not like, oh God, I'm probably going to die. You're like, this is just a really scary ride. And, you're watching the show and something I saw was it isn't Game of Thrones. It's if one of these kids dies, the rest of the show kind of becomes about the fact that one of these fucking kids died. They're not,
I was like, it's time.
It's not Predator. They're not an elite cadre of soldiers who are like, oh, he died, but it's okay. We got it. It's a big deal. And not that Game of Thrones really killed that many people, many main characters. I'm going to talk about plot armor. Talk about that show. Anyway, It's a different discussion.
They killed babies.
They did, but those babies didn't even have names.
They didn't.
Yeah, I mean, this show killed a lot of kids.
Oh, yeah.
In one scene, basically, or various versions of the same event. Which I find the warning at the beginning a little like, it's like some scenes in this fictional thing might be disturbing to some people. It's horror. Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that was specifically for Jason and the gun. I think that was because they never used to do those warning scenes, but they put the warnings up when there's the L in the beginning of episode 1. They put a warning because it was right after that shooting.
Yeah. I didn't think.
But
it was
this
Jason.
time, I really think that it would be because of the gun stuff because they didn't do it in the other episodes.
Oh, I thought it was because it was like a whole bunch of kids got killed.
Yeah,
and that was the parallel, but.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that they threw because it didn't make sense that it was in front of one episode and not the other.
Yeah, I didn't remember it this time. I only remember the first, and it did. Yeah, it came out like the day after.
It was in front of episode 8 though, so maybe it's because it's like the new release.
Maybe.
Or whatever.
Oh yeah, maybe, and they know you're just going to go right through. Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, I hear you in terms of like, I mean, you never. There's all this writing that's like, well, if you kill off a character at this point, then people won't know whether you're going to kill a character off at this other point. And it's like, yeah, but like you could not kill the character the first time and then you do kill the character the second time, you know?
Instead of one person, let's kill 3.
Right. And
but
to
not
me,
Steve.
Not Steve.
Right. Not Steve. Not Steve. I feel like Jonathan might get killed off, but like, I don't know.
It would make things easier.
It would make things easier.
If Steve kills Jonathan, that would be
right. Or maybe Robin. She just wants to solve the problem for the others, you know? So, but yeah, I feel like this show has a lot of things that if it didn't have really compelling character interactions would annoy me a lot more than they do, you know, because it's just like, all right, that's not a great plan. What, you're going to go set the laboratory on? Is this really going to help? You're going to like set the smoke on fire? Okay. But like, it's fine. It worked. You know, it's like, it didn't end up being really stupid. The thing where Eddie like goes back and runs out, I'm like, all right, I saw this coming, so like it doesn't bother me as much as if it were some very unpleasant surprise.
I was like, no.
I was like, Eddie, what are you doing? You're such a good guitar player.
Yeah, what a waste.
But like, just one note on Master of Puppets: Kirk Hammett, Metallica's lead guitarist, is this huge horror buff, and so you know, I mean. Metallica
they loved it. Yeah. They said that they loved it. Well, one of their other songs was in one of the previous seasons. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah.
Because they're really good about it. They like send the artists storyboards and the script, and they're like, "This is exactly what we're going to do with your songs." They did that with Kate Bush. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't really give her. She's very picky.
Yeah.
I will say I didn't love that they played that song again at the end. I love the song. I think it's great, but that was Max's song. Right. And you could like with having a show where your soundtrack, they had Creedence when they were stealing the RV thing, and then they had Journey when they were getting ready to go get back. Their music is lights out every season. I feel like because that song got so popular, they went back and put it in again at the end because it just really didn't fit.
Right.
And they could have chose a much like any other. Right. Just as equally epic song. I just was like, oh, why did you guys do that? Yeah. If I had to nitpick. Just because I know they could do better.
You have to nitpick. I mean, otherwise then, you know, my nitpicking.
Because other than like their music, and I don't mind here. I was like, yeah, I love the song. But we could have done any, I don't know.
We should have let Master of Puppets shine.
Yeah, exactly. Give it room to breathe. Play the whole song at the end.
Max's specific song, you know.
Although a ton of a new generation are now exposed to Master of Puppets, which is, I think, probably a pretty good thing.
It's charming again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a win.
Yeah. But Paul, like what were you saying about how, like, you know, the compelling characters allow you to kind of, you know, look past some of the implausibility of some of the stuff, you know, and you also brought up, playing RPGs before this, and, you know, and we know the Duffer Brothers are into that stuff, I think. And it's kind of like if you're running a Dungeons and Dragons game, and like, you know, you set up a situation, and then the party comes up with an idea to take care of it, and you're like, that's a really dumb idea. That's a really stupid thing.
But you can't
but
say anything.
let's figure out how it works.
Right.
Let's tell the story. And so like maybe that's part of their process.
Sure, it could be.
Well, that's why this one was chaos, because you never split the
Right,
party.
exactly.
Right, yeah, and they split the party so many ways.
You have to when you have 14 people in the party.
That is the thing, right?
So
the cast
many.
keeps swelling. Yeah. It's like the opposite of The Wire, where they just bump off a ton of characters every season, and then they add new characters the next season. Here, it's like they just keep adding more characters, and it's really only some of the newer characters that like don't make it.
Yeah.
Best ones.
Yeah, like Eddie, for some reason, like Eddie dying, I was just like, all right, I guess we're doing this. But then when Dustin goes and talks to his uncle, like that's the moment that hit for me, in terms of just, because like it was just so sad, It's like, obviously it's awful getting eaten by bats,
right.
Or, upside down, whatever they are. But like that, the uncle being there and like seeing what everybody thought of his nephew.
Yeah.
And then like Dustin being like, look, that's not how it was.
Yeah.
I want you to know that I know that.
They set that up really well in the first, in part one, when the cops were talking to him, and he definitely set it up, like, oh, it's the trailer park. He looks like this grizzled old look at that guy. He's probably some racist old piece of shit, probably. But no, and then he like starts talking like sweetly about his nephew, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
that was a really nice moment. And then we got to have that really sad moment at the end, but it was great.
Well, the moment that Eddie and Dusty had too,
God, yeah.
or that one, and that's when I was like, okay, you're not making it out of this.
Yeah.
Don't ever change.
Lead those sheep.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I will say, like, at the beginning, I was like, oh, why did they move to California? This is annoying. But, like, on the other hand, why don't they all move to California? Like,
right?
Why would you stay in Hawkins? Oh, my goodness.
Because you got to stop it, Paul, or it's going to spread all over and there's nowhere to run.
Then, like, focus on stopping. Don't go to school. I don't know. I won't go on a whole anti-school. But
they thought they were done. Every time they think they've killed him. But I'm telling you, they're going to have to take
everybody,
out Will.
Everything's better
everybody
now.
Except Will.
But, like, if you're Max,
speaking
like,
of Will.
don't you, like, want to leave Hawkins? Like, can
Max
you get
can't
away
do
from
anything right
by
now.
getting away? I'm saying a little earlier in the game, a little earlier on, like you're getting possessed or whatever. Like maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe there's a range,
Yeah.
Maybe
I was going to say maybe
maximum.
there is. But speaking of Will, I feel like we finally kind of got an answer to his sexuality, and I thought that they did it a really good way.
For sure.
And I thought that his conversations with Jonathan were really sweet.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I thought that Mike could have at least given him a little like pat in the car when he showed him the picture, and then he was like, she really loves you, like out the window.
Yeah.
And Mike's as socially awkward as me, where I'm just like, just pretend you don't see it. Just pretend you don't see the fact that he's over there sniffle crying. Oh my God, he's still doing it. I don't know how.
I'm going to pretend to be asleep.
Yeah.
But they did. Yeah. I was like, at least pat, like, ta-ta. Like, it's okay, buddy. I'm still your best friend. Yeah. But they chose to let Jonathan have that moment, and I thought that was beautiful.
For sure. I feel like Mike could get eaten, and I'd be okay with it.
I feel like the same way, too, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No.
He's the heart.
Not. Yeah, he's the heart. I guess, like, I kind of don't buy that. I don't know. Like, I love the show, but I'm like, is he, though? Is he the heart? Like,
I can't think of anybody else who
when
would
you try
be.
and force someone else to eat a particular slice of pizza.
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's true.
I mean, she has telekinesis, so she definitely isn't going to literally get forced to eat a slice of pizza. But it's like, I don't know.
She enjoyed it.
Did she?
She liked it. Yeah, they had to force Mike to eat it.
And Mike did not like it.
Oh, okay. Oh, it was Mike who didn't like it.
They tried to,
Oh, I have it totally backwards. Yeah,
so
no.
now you
okay,
see
so
why
yeah,
he's
so
the
then
heart.
Elle can get eaten. No, I'm just kidding. She's like one of the characters she's like the character that I find indispensable. But I mean, I guess obviously, but I don't know. I wrote a song called 11 a long time ago, and then like I heard there was a character of this name. I was like, what? I was like, I was gonna name a kid 11. Now that's just
now you can't.
Oh, now you can't
just
do
be
it.
weird.
Yeah.
maybe they'll Game of Thrones the end of this and everyone will hate it and forget about it.
Right. And then it'll be like naming a kid Daenerys.
Many people.
All the Khaleesi's and Daenerys's out there.
Right.
I'd be proud. I'd be like, yeah, burn that city. That's exactly what she did. Should have done.
Yeah. The people who named their daughters Khaleesi after the series was over.
Rock and roll.
Right. Yeah, always wait till a thing is done before you make anything based on it. I think is a good rule of guideline to go by.
Just so you don't end up naming your daughter after a psychotic nephew fucker.
Right, exactly.
Jon Snow, man.
Yeah, I mean,
name my nephew, but if he was, I don't know.
Yeah.
On that note.
Can't leave it on that note. Well, a positive note. Things. Robin.
Oh yeah.
Went through it a little emotionally. You know what my problem with that was? Is that girl was so much like her, I would immediately not want to date her anymore. You don't want to date yourself.
Oh.
Huh. But do you want to date yourself dressed up like Molly Ringwald?
Maybe for 5 minutes. But that's just me.
It was nice to see her finally kind of like meet someone, right, and connect. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's gonna go well enough, or at least go. You know,
it was sweet, and I love that Steve was happy. Even though Steve is so miserable, he was happy for Robin.
Yeah.
That whole little group, and everybody's kind of separated again at the end. They're all not back together.
Yeah, did some of them go back off, or you mean they're like
Dustin, Steve, and Robin were at the like the gym handing out stuff, and then Lucas and Erica were with Max at the hospital. Oh, I guess the kids did go to the hospital.
Yeah, and everybody else was there, seeing the dead flowers, and
why was 11 pretending like she didn't know what happened to Max? Did you guys pick up on that?
Oh. Maybe she didn't know what happened to Max.
No, I mean, she
knew, like, that she either died or almost died, but she lost contact, right? And then they went
because they were like, "Oh, he's at the hospital. Why are you at the hospital? Oh, you guys don't know." And she wasn't like, "Well, nobody was kind of explaining stuff to each other." And then even in there, she was like, "I'm so sorry," but didn't say I was there.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. Although that's also one of my least favorite, like, always repeated lines is, "Oh, you don't know."
Oh, right. You don't know.
You're going to want to see this.
Yeah.
Cut to trees and birds.
Right.
And a pan.
No, but, oh, you don't know.
And I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah. We're going to cut to that. We're going to skip this, which is good. And then the cut to it. Yeah, I don't know. That's the big question. I think that's one of our biggest questions going into season 5 is what the hell's going on with Max.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if it is some sort of post-apocalyptic hellscape, I don't know. How do you stay alive on life support through that?
Yeah, you got to evacuate out of there. How long until the town starts to all turn into, dust?
Right. Like, can they all just, like, turn like zombies or all get possessed or I don't know. Like, can they make another Mind Flayer thing? Like,
I mean, I guess Vecna could.
Yeah.
If he brings them through.
Yeah, the more we talk about this, I feel like it has to be some kind of, like, post-apocalyptic thing at this point. Right. Because, like, how else, if it jumps ahead 5 years and there's still this burning X in the middle of town?
Yeah, that
how long does it take? He doesn't have a plan, Vecna.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Well,
he's like, I'm living in the now.
Yeah.
He's like, I only thought far ahead enough to break through, and then I didn't really know what to do with myself from there. So
gonna make it beautiful.
Just gonna backpack through Europe for a few months.
In the upside down.
Yeah.
Trying to think. I think that's about. You got anything else, Mark? What else you got? I know you got.
No, I think we covered it there. Like, there's a lot of questions.
It was and it was a lot of content. It was just like we're covering another like 4 episodes.
Yeah,
it would be like
Yeah, I mean, it was a season worth of like normal length episodes, basically. If you had chopped it, each one could have been chopped up into 3 episodes, and you have 6 episodes.
And I still would have watched it all in one sitting.
Sure. Yeah, why not?
You know what? Speaking of content, I just saw this today. the Duffer Brothers got like their own production company within Netflix now. Upside Down Pictures.
I heard they were doing a spin-off.
Yeah, they're doing
something.
a spin-off. They're doing another original series. They're adapting The Talisman, the book that Lucas is reading to Max. They're doing all kinds of stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That stuff always makes me worried. I'm like, don't suck. Please be good.
Yeah, for sure.
Please be good.
I have to say that the idea that there's a spin-off I find a little bit concerning. Like, just because however season 5 wraps up then has to have some, like, there might be some implications, you know? Like, trying to write for whatever's happening later, unless it's like spun far enough, kind of.
Because if Vecna's the main problem and we don't take care of Vecna in the final season in any way, then what have we been doing?
I think it's just going to be a pure like 80s sitcom where Steve and Robin have an apartment. And
I would watch that.
Yeah, that works. That works.
That's cool. And they adopted Dusty.
Like Perfect Strangers. Yeah.
Perfect Strangers. Perfect Strangers things.
Yeah. Oh, there it is.
It almost works.
It writes itself. Yeah, I'm definitely excited about like their non-Stranger Things properties. I think Talisman will be really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, no, there is always that trepidation of like, you know, you've got this thing and it works. Is it going to work if you spin it off?
Yeah. Yeah, like I'm more excited to see other stuff that they make because I think they clearly know how to make a good show, right?
Right.
And so making another good show or another good movie or something to me feels like a little more straightforward in some ways than trying to spin something off of something that hopefully I would hope that season 5 gives us some sense of closure. Perhaps season 5 part 2. Because, I mean, if you did it in season 4, you're probably going to do it in season 5, right?
Yeah, probably.
But we'll see.
Drag out the hype. All
right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I was very happy to get to talk to both of you about this after listening to the three of you talk about. I was listening to you all try and sort out the timeline of this show while I was trying to sort out the timeline of your podcast. And
I'm glad you liked it. I was worried, but I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad I liked it. I mean, it definitely sort of straddled the line of like where if it didn't have a bunch of really charming interactions and fantastic, you know, character moments, I don't know. I feel like just the mystery itself is maybe enough to kind of drive it for me. You know,
nice.
I think this is a show that can really appeal to different people in a lot of different ways. And I think those are some of the most successful shows a lot of the time. And so I think I might like a lot of, you know, some different things about this show than somebody else might like. But there's enough there to, I'm like, yeah, you know, you don't have to have a great plan. That's fine. It's a bunch of kids, or it's, you know, it's a small town cop and, you know, a telemarketer and a Russian prison guard and a smuggler. And you're like, yeah, we're going to go to kill the smoke or something. That's fine. It's fine.
We're going to get in and out of Russia with no problems.
As long as you give me a badass shot with Conan's sword, like I'm good.
Yeah.
Delivered with a bow.
Do you want to promote your things?
Yeah, Mark, tell the people where they can find you and all the stuff.
You can find me at Mark Dimitri, MarkDmitri. See, I wasn't lying about being Russian. On social medias, and then you can also find my my podcast, Cast Eye Podcast, at Cast Eye Podcast, wherever podcasts are found. If you need some more D&D in your life.
Always.
And we'll have all those links in the show notes.
Sweet.
It's cast die, right? Like a die, casting a die. Yeah.
It's so clever. I love it. I love your show. Oh. Everybody's so very talented. It's fun to listen to.
Thank you. We're going to have you guys on there soon. I know I've been saying that for a long time, but it's going to happen.
I'm going to do it.
It's going to happen.
Katie wants me to come do it from her house. She's like, I want you to be next to me. I was like, okay.
Maybe we'll all do it from Katie's house.
Yes.
And we won't tell Katie. We'll just do it.
Surprise. We just put an episode of Poltergeist out on our new show, Bill and Ashley's Terror Theater. So go check that out on all the things. It's on Twitter at Battpod, BATTPOD. And that's it. That's about all. I don't care about any of my other stuff.
Just those sweet horror pods.
Yeah, there's that Marvel cast, but whatever.
Everybody who listens to this pod knows that already, right? I mean,
yeah.
you need no introduction or outroduction or whatever you call it. I'm Paul Hoppy, aka Zen Madman. I'm Zen Madman in a bunch of places. You can find me in those places. Matthew would say, have a great day, right? Is that a great day?
Have a nice day?
Have a nice day? I think something like that.
Be nice or something.
Yes. I hope all your icosahedron rolls come up 20s.
Oh, I love it.
Nice.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
I got so hot by the end of this. I'm just like, oh, God. I didn't realize how sweaty I was.